So hear me out. I say Justin Herbert, hypothetically, if we just give him the greatest offensive line of all time, the greatest wide receivers of all time, a pretty great run game, one of the better defenses of all time, hypothetically, Justin Herbert might be able to win a playoff game. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm crazy.
We don't know. Given the data at hand, it's hard to tell.
It is hard to tell. Some pieces lackluster around him, but man, oh man, I'm not even trying to hate too much, even though it's fun for me to do, because he really was doing his darndest. But the narrative gets worse and worse by the year for Justin.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. What about John Elway though? Took John Elway a couple years.
Have you looked at Peyton Manning's struggles in the playoffs for the first 5 years of his career? You know, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time that won like 4 MVPs and was just like a freak athlete. He had like one of the worst. I was listening to this. It was actually a pretty awesome clip. Tom Brady was on some podcast recently, and he was talking about in like 2010. So him and Peyton were both over a decade into their career. Tom was like right at a decade. And they spent like a week together in the off season because at that point they'd become friends. And Tom was already kind of like a super regimented person. Like his diet was crazy strict. And he was at Peyton Manning's house in Tennessee. And Peyton Manning, you know, he says, all right, let's have some breakfast. And Tom orders a bowl of oatmeal and 2 eggs. And Peyton orders like 5 biscuits and gravy, like 10 sausages, like 20 strips of bacon, just a million eggs, pancakes and syrup. And it's like, he was doing all that. And it's not like he was
continental breakfast.
A full continental breakfast.
Buffet.
And this is not like 25-year-old Peyton Manning where, you know, like pure athlete, he can eat whatever he wants and his body will just work through it. Like Peyton's in his early mid-30s at this point. Still winning MVPs and playing in Super Bowls.
Oh my gosh. That's awesome. But yeah, welcome to Two Down Territory. We're going to be recapping the playoff games. It's Monday night, and the Texans are still, I'm assuming, beating. Yep, the Texans now have 30 points.
Yeah, we started this now because after the scoop and score by the Texans, we kind of just called it.
What was the score at that point?
It was
after the scoop and score.
It became 17-6. It was 10-6 Steelers
and now
ball.
It's 30-6. With
Okay.
2 minutes left.
Yep.
So the Texans have a commanding lead. And, but yeah, so we're going to recap the games. We're going to give our predictions now that we know it's set in stone. And roll the intro.
2 inches short, maybe less. Story of my life. It's been a while since he's seen a hole that big.
If you say he's a bust and you end up right, it's not because you're some genius. It's because you got lucky.
How I feel, man? Tell me how I feel, El Freaky.
We prayed that these bird 30s would nourish us and allow us to throw the ball.
They got to go get this bread.
If you suck, you might as well suck with purpose. And
I was going to say, Adam, do we want to work our way backwards in terms of the playoff games that occurred? A little switch up on the formula, you know, talk about what's fresh.
Yeah, we can start with Texans-Steelers.
Texans-Steelers, obviously we are skipping the last 5 minutes of the game because who cares? We knew what was going to happen at the end after the scoop and score and the Steelers punting immediately. The story of the game here is simply a 2-part combination that's kind of the same thing, which is that the Texans' defensive line is good enough to consistently... What do you say?
Just want to point out real quick, the final touchdown that gave them the 30. So after the soup and score, Woody Marks had a 13-yard rush, which is indicative of the game. The running game by Texans was really good tonight. And then Kalen Bullock had a 50-yard interception return for a touchdown.
Oh, so another pick
to make it 30-6.
Yeah. Another defensive score. So scoop and score and a pick six. Point being, the story of this game for me was that the Texans' defensive line is good enough to win with a 4-man rush consistently, and not just win, dominate. And if you combine that with a 42-year-old quarterback who's literally older than the opposing team's head coach, then yes, you're going to win that game. It didn't really matter. The Texans offense wasn't good tonight. They established the run consistently, but that Texans defense is good enough to beat anybody, and we'll get to predictions in a moment, but this is not a fun team to play against. I don't care if it's heavily dependent on one side of the ball.
Yeah, so for about half the year, I was pretty adamant that I thought the Broncos were the best defense in the league by just watching the teams play. Even though, because there are a lot of stats that really point to the Texans, even early on in the season. And then I would say about halfway through, every single day, depending on, and after every week, it was like, no, I think the Seahawks have the best defense. No, maybe it is the Broncos, or no, maybe it's the Texans. The last few weeks, it's pretty much been solidified in my mind that the Texans have the best defense in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And, as a matter of fact, I think that the Seahawks and the Texans are kind of in a tier of their own. Then there's the Broncos, then there's everybody else.
Yeah.
And the Texans just stifling performance. And again, this really is, there are a lot of metrics like points per game, yards allowed per game, those types of things that point to this as well. But the Texans defense is just so good. And this was another example of it against the Steelers offense that also isn't particularly spectacular. In fact, they're pretty bad except for very few stretches in the season. But the truth is that the Texans have this ability to win big games with their defense. And the one thing that I learned, I didn't really learn much from this night. It's, if anything, it just confirmed my bias with the Texans defense, which is that there are not a lot of offenses that I can see being able to consistently put points up, if any offense that's going to be able to consistently put points up against this defense.
Well, speaking to the quality of the defense, I would say that, and it's not that I'm not putting down the Texans secondary in the slightest, but I would say that the Broncos and Seahawks secondaries are clearly better on paper than the Texans.
Yes.
But do you know what might be one of the easiest jobs in the NFL? Not that they do a poor job, is being the secondary coach for the Texans.
Yeah,
because your scheme almost doesn't matter if you can consistently get an insane amount of pressure with a 4-man rush. Like the numbers advantage that has to just consistently able to have second guys in the second and third levels of your defense is insane.
Yeah, one of my favorite things, and I can't remember if I think it was the scoop and score. Right before the scoop and score, Aaron Rodgers got sacked. But before that, the Texans got a penalty for 12 men on the field.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why is because basically they shifted out their entire defensive line. And so right before that penalty, it was the starters. Right after that, you had guys like Autry, Sheldon Rankins, who eventually picked it up. Like you had these backups in, like Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter weren't in the game. And, they come in, they generate the pressure. Aaron Rodgers trips. And then, a play or two later, they get the strip sack. And, at that time, I think Will Anderson was in the game. But it just goes to show it's not just like the star power that's on this defensive line, but it's also the extra pieces, depth that they have on this defensive line that they don't really, there is no break for the Steelers. And, the one thing that we pointed out with this game and why we thought that the Texans had such a huge advantage, especially on the defensive side of the ball, is because the Steelers this year has made a living off of screens. They've made a living off of the run game and specifically explosive runs from Jaylen Warren on first down. And then the yards after catch in the short intermediate area of the field. Kenneth Gainwell has been a monster in that area. The Texans defense does not let that happen. And you saw that this game. You saw how every single time the Steelers got a completion, it was almost immediately that someone was on them making the open field tackle.
Oh, yeah.
Got to shout out Jalen Petrie. He had an incredible game. Carmani Lassiter had a couple good pass breakups. Obviously Derek Stingley. It's one of those things where it's like when you're the number one corner and people don't say your name a lot, it generally means you're doing a good job. Yes. No, this team is absolutely incredible. And there's not really much to say because, and this is without mentioning the fact that the reason why this game was close is because CJ Stroud just had a bad game.
He did.
Just straight up had a bad game. He had those 2 fumbles. There was that one play where he even dropped the snap, and he was able to pick it up, so it wasn't a turnover. And then obviously the interception in it was in the red zone. Yeah, it was at like the 10-yard line. They left points on the board because of that, but
I mean, anytime you can play
Nico
that
Collins
poorly
okay,
on the offensive side of, if your quarterback can play that poorly, and you're gonna end up winning this game by 3 possessions, that kind of speaks to something. On the Steelers side of things, there's a lot to say. I really think the one thing that merits discussion right now is the headline of Aaron Rodgers, of course, and who knows? I mean, it could be later tonight during his post-game interview that he says that he's retiring. That doesn't seem very Aaron Rodgers-like. I kind of doubt that that's coming. But by the time this episode comes out in the next couple of days, potentially could be announced. And so I know we're just some small little podcast, but I do think that we should reflect on how wonderful this man's career has been. It's been a pleasure to watch him football, and it's unfortunate to watch a guy, go out in a loss like that, but it's pretty rare that guys go out on, a win. It's pretty rare.
True.
So I don't think that holds him back too much in my mind, and the fact that he got one last playoff run, however brief it was, just one game, was pretty awesome. So shout out to Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, shout out to Aaron Rodgers, one of the greatest quarterbacks of this generation, and one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Absolutely incredible what he was able to do in his career. From being the drafted later than a lot of people expected, going to the Packers, sitting behind Brett Favre, getting his opportunity, and then absolutely making the most of it. Just an incredible player, an incredible run. And, maybe he won't retire. It feels like the writing's kind of on the wall, but I hope if he does come back, he doesn't play for the Steelers because he needs to go to a place that has a good offensive line.
Yes. Another Tomlin season. That's the one other thing we have to harp on. I mean, it's been beat. I mean, you can't even call it beating a dead horse. It might be like beating glue. Like the horse has already been turned into glue at this point. It's just paste.
It's just glue at this point.
It's like you're just like punching, a tub of Elmer's is what you're doing at this point. Talking about the Mike Tomlin season. Do you have? I guess you can say the hot take if you want to. Do you think that there's any chance in the next few days that Mike Tomlin is fired?
To be honest with you, before Harbaugh was fired, I would have said no. Now, and obviously these are professional teams, but I do feel like there are certain precedents that are set by one team and that carries over to the other. To be honest with you, I have no idea. I wouldn't really be surprised either way. That being said, because I think with the Ravens, it's a situation where obviously, they fire their head coach, but you still feel like this is a team that should be competing for at least a playoff spot.
Well, here's the context
Steelers...
I have to add really quick, and I think it would be hilarious, because I'm not even saying Tomlin should be fired. If I told you going into this season that in the 2026 offseason, 3 AFC North head coaches would be fired, and the one remaining was Zach Taylor.
I'd be like, we won the Super Bowl then. It's the only option.
The last man standing of the AFC North, 2 Hall of Fame head coaches and a multiple-time Coach of the Year award winner, Nick Stefanski, and Zach Taylor stands alone.
Is the only one left. Oh my gosh. But yeah, no. But what I was going to say though is Mike Tomlin, if they do end up letting him go, it feels like they kind of have to go into full rebuild mode.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. I don't know if they will.
See, but that's a good point. I don't know if they will. You see, it's interesting you started with saying that the Harbaugh firing kind of makes you question whether it could be a possibility. For me, the Harbaugh firing kind of means it's unlikely because it means two of the I could easily see the Steelers front office, even if I disagree with this, kind of deluding themselves into being like, well, they just fired John Harbaugh. That's our biggest competition in, Joe Burrow's health aside, Bengals have their own issues. Like, the best head coach in the division was fired. The Browns are the Browns. I could easily see themselves into deluding themselves into being like, well, now, even if we have our questions about Tomlin, he's objectively the best head coach remaining in the division.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And so,
I don't know,
that
man.
kind of makes it interesting.
On one hand, you have the overwhelming amount of evidence that says that Mike Tomlin is incapable of winning a playoff game at this point in his NFL head coaching career. On the other hand, you have the overwhelming amount of evidence that says that the Steelers don't give a crap. And so it's like, what do you do with that? I don't know. We'll just have to see what happens.
Well, we could go back and forth with that conversation all day. We can move. Oh, go ahead.
The last thing I'll say is, I really hope Arthur Smith doesn't have a job. They need to find a quarterback that can actually do something in and of himself, and then find a offensive coordinator that pairs with him at the very least. But we can move on.
Yeah, I mean, this seems like I'm not even predicting this, but I can easily see, I'm putting this out there now. I'm envisioning Geno Smith in a Steelers jersey next season.
I was thinking of Malik Willis, but that would be Malik Willis, I really hope.
Malik Willis is actually not a bad. Yeah, that's also a good pick. I like that.
But if Malik Willis is stuck with Arthur Smith, I don't expect anything to happen with that.
Yeah, we can move backwards to the Chargers at the Patriots. Probably, maybe just purely based on how it got out of hand in the fourth quarter, this Texans-Steelers game was probably the quote-unquote worst game of the week of playoff games. Yeah. Great slate all around. This game was kind of a slugfest. Not kind of, it objectively was. But you have potentially the worst half of football for Drake May this entire season. And in fact, you could argue that there's some statistics out there where you could argue that this is his worst game of the season overall. Maybe only the Raiders game could be paired against it, but that's, factoring in the fact that they lost to the Raiders as well as the statistics. And yet it didn't really matter. The main reason it didn't matter is that all of the things that we said are true, and all the things everyone said are true, which is the Chargers don't have an offensive line. And even during the first half, when they were actually playing with some energy and kind of held up sort of well, the Chargers' weapons that got absolutely no separation. I somewhat pin that on Harbaugh for early in the game when their offensive line wasn't, fully gassed yet, not establishing the run. It felt like that they were almost put in a situation where it's like, oh, we're actually getting kind of okay for us protection here. Let's throw the ball, 2/3 of the time. And it's like, that's not really this Harbaugh offense.
Yeah. And, I'm someone who's very sympathetic to a quarterback who's trying to play behind a bad offensive line,
yes,
especially one that this bad.
And I kind of am too.
Yeah, exactly. And not just in terms of my own team, just kind of generally, because I think that I just have a good understanding of what, how hard it is for a quarterback to work and operate in that system. But really what it boils down to is that Justin Herbert, and especially in the first half, because you're right, the offensive line deteriorated throughout the game. And it seems like as the game went on, the Chargers offensive line got worse and worse. Part of that, I think, was just simply because of stamina. The other part of that is because, Vrabel's defense really started, schematically adding more pressure to the game. But the problem was, and this was just the story of the of the game for the Chargers is as soon as Justin Herbert wasn't pressured, he immediately was able to find guys open. They were able to move the ball. But then as soon as he was pressured, it completely went to crap. And so the reason why I'm saying that is to say that when you are a team and a quarterback who is facing pressure, you have to find a way to be able to beat it at least once or twice to then incentivize the defense to come off of it. And I said this a lot talking about the Bengals actually in this season, especially when, Browning was playing. Because I was like, listen, the problem is that every time they blitz, we don't make them pay with the weapons that we have. And to be fair, like the Chargers' weapons are not the same in terms of that ability compared to the Bengals, but they do have some guys that should be able to beat one-on-one coverage in the short intermediate area of the field, specifically Keenan Allen and Ladd McConkey. And so basically what my point is that the problem that Justin Herbert had in this game, and where I will say like this is something he had to be better at, even though he was pretty good at it in the season, is taking advantage more when there was pressure. Because eventually Vrabel realized that, wait a minute, as soon as we send pressure, they literally can't do anything. Like Herbert is completely boxed. And so because of that, it immediately incentivized them to keep putting it on, keep piling it on, keep piling it on. And Herbert just never was able to escape from that. And, that's not just Herbert. That's also Jesse Minter, who needs to take, or not Jesse Minter, Greg Roman, who needs to take some accountability with that, because again, you have to be able to make them pay when they're sending extra guys, when they're creating the pressure. And unless you are able to do that, you really don't have a chance. And Justin Herbert was not able to do that. When there was no pressure, he played incredible. When there was pressure, he played terrible. And that was really the story of this game for the Chargers offense, in my mind.
100%. The two things here, one I'll say about the Chargers, and not even playing into the joke, it is a season of what ifs. Obviously, a week before the season starts, season ending to Rashawn Slater. But this game does objectively look a lot different if Joe Alt and Amarian Hampton are playing.
100%.
And so I do legitimately sympathize with the Chargers. This is, of all of the Justin Herbert in hypothetical scenario situations, I'm not just being a prisoner of the moment. This is objectively the most real one. If this team was even, half healthy compared to some of the injuries they faced, this is a better team. And it's probably a team that isn't playing in the 6 seed, probably more like the 5 seed. I'm not going to say they would have overtaken the Broncos, but they're probably more likely than not the 5 seed and playing, the Steelers. So on the Patriots side of things, I already said there's 2 ways that you can look at this game, and both of them are kind of true. You could look at this from the perspective of Drake May played arguably the worst game, at objectively a bottom 3 game of the season for him, and in hindsight, they still won pretty handedly. The other way you can look at it is the offensive line, and particularly Will Campbell, looked pretty bad, and they have to go play Houston.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they don't have to go play. They host Houston, but just to clarify, my phrasing there. But that's the other way you could look at this game, and that's scary. Objectively, Will Campbell cannot play as poorly as he did.
Well, and that's the biggest thing with the Patriots. They had a 45th percentile EPA per play, difficulty running the ball outside of the QB scramble, honestly, and they relied on short area passing. And that's the one thing I do want to shout out Drake May for. Obviously, he had a couple of really impressive plays, but he was a bit, and again, this was kind of, in my mind, the difference in the game is what the quarterback was able to do under pressure. And the reason why I'm willing to say that Justin Herbert, there should be some blame placed on, and I don't want to say blame, but like Justin Herbert could have done a better job, is because we saw what Drake May was able to do in very specific situations where he was able to scramble under pressure and gain first downs. That's something Herbert did well in the season, but wasn't able to do in this game. And it's those types of little things where it's like, can we have a successful play when they're sending pressure at us? Because that's immediately going to disincentivize and make the defensive coordinator or the play caller say in their mind, do I really want to send pressure on this big down? And that hesitation is really important when you're dealing with an offensive line at the level that the Chargers are dealing with. That, in my mind, was the difference in this game for the Patriots offense. It was because Drake May did a better job in under pressure. Even overall, he didn't really do that good of a job, but it was enough to make the Chargers hesitate, to make sure to have to, put out a QB spy, to have to ensure that they have good rushing lanes. And it's like all of those different things create small advantages to the point where it's like, no, did their offense operate efficiently for the majority of the game? Like, no. But when it's a rock fight like this, like that can be the difference.
Yeah. No, I mean, not much else to say on this game. Some more analysis on these games in context will be discussed when we predict the upcoming divisional rounds, but that was how this game went. We can back it up to one of the two games that we split on. This was a game that I hit on. So we both went 5-6. I picked the 49ers. You picked the Eagles. I was correct in this matchup. And it kind of went exactly how I said it was going to go, which was the Eagles' offense is bad.
Yeah.
That's the story.
True.
It doesn't matter how banged up the 49ers are. And I will say, Robert Saleh, for as poorly as the New York Jets coaching stint went, might be playing himself back into another chance at a head coach or coaching himself back.
He's
legitimately. I mean, after what I've seen this season and his previous experience in the past as the 49ers defensive coordinator, the first stint, he's got to be in discussion for one of the best defensive minds in the NFL. I mean, you've got your Steve Spagnuolos, you've got your Florios, you've got your, throw some other
Florio?
Or not Flores.
You mean Flores?
Sorry.
Who the hell is Florio?
And you have to put Robert Saleh in the mix. Obviously, just talking about one side of the ball here for the 49ers, but that does seem to be one of the stories of the postseason is how decimated they are injury-wise, and it doesn't seem to matter.
Yeah. What's interesting, though, because of the names that you pointed out, compared to Saleh has the least unique and, I guess you could say, for lack of a better word, complicated defensive scheme.
But he gets the guys fired up.
That's exactly what I was going to say. He just lights a fire under their butts. Listen, man. And it's like, you can't knock it. Like, it's working. Like, they legitimately have 5th and 6th string linebackers out there. They're throwing together a team. And this is a defense that already was supposed to take a hit from some of the guys leaving in the offseason. And then on top of that, you're missing your top 2 defensive players.
Oh, yeah.
And they're still cooking. Like, they're just,
it cannot be
and it's not that they're cooking. They're just cooking enough. Like, they're just doing enough to win these games. And it's just really impressive.
Yeah. I mean, I'll switch to the offense here in a second, but just to cap it off on the defense, everyone has said it already, but I mean, it cannot be overstated, not simply because Fred Warner is the best linebacker in the league, but he's also the Mike. Like, he's the quarterback of the defense, and for him to go down, and the defense just seems to be operating at a competent enough level is shocking. So yeah, shout out to that defense. On the other hand, or if you want to finish off the defensive discussion.
No, you're good. No, that's everything I have to say.
I'm not all the way there. But, and this is funny because he didn't even play. In fact, he made a couple of decisions that were objectively poor. I'm kind of coming around on Brock Purdy.
Okay. Yeah, no,
I have been a known
Brock
Purdy hater, and I've been kind of quiet on him this season. There are 2 quarterbacks in the last 5 seasons who have multiple fourth quarter postseason comebacks. Patrick Mahomes has 5 of them. Brock Purdy has 4 of them. No other quarterback has more than 1. What's the thing that we always say about Shanahan? His big weakness, fourth quarter comebacks.
Exactly.
If he's down going into the fourth, Brock Purdy, of all of the quarterbacks that have played directly under Shanahan, has, I want to say that quarterbacks under Shanahan entering the fourth quarter down are 4-30. Brock Purdy is 4-14, which doesn't sound like that's a 4-14, but like that's being like there's only 2 quarterbacks that are even close to 500 in their career. It's Patrick Mahomes, who's slightly above 500, and Tom Brady, who's slightly below 500. Like, that's a pretty impressive record, knowing Shanahan's patterns of not being able to come back in the fourth quarter. I don't know. Brock Purdy played well. This offense did just enough, and Shanahan, with his usual bag of tricks, another touchdown pass on a trick play. I don't know. You know, Jawan Jennings, Magic Jennings. I mean, and CMC with the catch. I mean, I could talk about this game. I just thought it was Nick Sirianni was coached off the field despite having on both sides of the ball just a massive talent advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, Kyle Shanahan bullied Adoree Jackson in this game. Like, it was with DeMarcus Robinson of all people, Adoree Jackson. And it was funny because when you're watching this, Tom Brady just kept talking about, oh, look at DeMarcus Robinson go. And the whole time I'm thinking like, yeah, it's because, you know, you have Cooper DeJean, you have Quinion Mitchell, who got 2 interceptions, and then you have one guy who keeps ruining the vibes for this Philadelphia Eagles defense.
I mean, it was like this,
and it was Adoree Jackson.
The second 100-yard game of DeMarcus Robinson's career, and he's been playing for like 12 seasons.
It was so.
I mean,
funny,
Chiefs legend,
dude. It kind of felt
DeMarcus
like
Robinson.
Exactly. It kind of felt like. You know, any Broncos game where Riley Moss just repeatedly gets picked on, the difference is that Riley Moss is generally a very good corner. And so it's just like, it's just insane. The biggest thing, and it's funny because you say this game came exactly as you expected. It came how I expected. The difference is I just anticipated the Eagles defense would have made that last stop in the fourth quarter. Like that, and that's really what the game was. There was never a part, as soon as the Philadelphia took the lead in the fourth quarter to make it 23-19, I was like, there's no way the Eagles are going to score. Like I had absolutely zero faith. I basically just accepted my L on that pick because that offense was incredibly efficient. It was a great scheme. You know, Brock Purdy is probably the best quarterback that Kyle Shanahan has had since Matt Ryan, to be honest, running his offense.
Yes.
And so the reason I'm saying all of that is to say that this 49ers team 100% has a ceiling. You know, I talked about them, or I did that video talking about the 49ers on our social media, and just like the incredible job that Kyle Shanahan has done. I know that technically end of season awards shouldn't include the playoffs. I think Coach of the Year kind of should, because what Kyle Shanahan has done just to get them to the divisional round is absolutely incredible. And now you add George Kittle to that injury list. He has an incredible scheme. It's an incredibly well-coached team. You have Salah on the other side with that defense just doing enough. And this team, I wouldn't be shocked if they make it to the championship game. I would not be shocked.
Yeah. Fire Kevin Patullo. That's kind of what you have. That's the baseline of what you have to do if you're Philadelphia. As much as I may want Sirianni to fire, I do doubt that occurs. I think that they fire Patullo and they run it back one more time. But Nick Sirianni is objectively on a hot seat heading into next season. I don't care.
Yeah. And I was talking about this with one of my friends because I just realized basically the problem with Nick Sirianni is that and you know, this is, obviously I'm speaking to the choir with you, Jonathan, but when your team is so dependent upon your coordinators to be a contender, I feel like at that point you have a problem. And the reason why we're holding the Eagles to the standard is because their GM has put them in that conversation because of their roster and the moves that he's made, the draft picks on defense, the move to get AJ Brown, the move to get Saquon Barkley, all of those things. Like, you cannot convince me that this is not a team with a roster that, I mean, obviously can win a Super Bowl. They did last year, but that should at least be winning a wild card round. And I'm saying that to say that now, since Nick Sirianni has been there, he went to the Super Bowl and lost. Both of those coordinators left. He hired new coordinators, and they failed miserably in the wild card. And there was all of this locker room turmoil. The next year, he hired good coordinators in Fangio and Kellen Moore. They win the Super Bowl. Kellen Moore leaves, and all of a sudden, the offense goes to crap. And so if you're not providing value on the offensive side of the ball, because it's so dependent upon the coordinator, if you're not providing value on the defensive side of the ball because there's a clear, correlation between Vic Fangio getting there and the defense becoming dominant, and the locker room is still crap and you're yelling at your best wide receiver at the sideline, then it's like, what value are you bringing? Like, you're not bringing locker room value because from the moment you got there, there's been turmoil that's only been fixed by this incredible roster winning games under incredible value by these coordinators who, by the way, Kellen Moore has now gone to the Saints and is doing a great job there. People aren't talking about that. And so it's like, what are you bringing to the table?
A shaved head and, Philadelphia energy.
The problem is that Philadelphia energy is bad vibes. It is bad energy.
I mean, I think that and I bet a lot of people that are watching this have seen this clip. All you need to do is watch the clip of that 13-year-old kid that was interviewed immediately after the game. That was awesome. One of the best videos to come out of sports social media in the last few years. Shout out to that kid. He deserves season tickets.
One thing we have to talk about too. So first off, obviously it was the same thing, and this was the difference maker in the game. The Eagles had negative 0.05 EPA per play. They had a negative 11.3% expected or run or pass rate over expected. So they ran the ball incredibly heavily. Here's the biggest thing, because this is what their offense has been dependent on. They had a 2.7% explosive play rate, which is in the second percentile. This is a team that is literally, their season on offense has been dictated by their explosive plays.
That's what I said heading into the season. I've been saying this in the offseason. If they and it's part of those things where on the one side, they have the talent to just in a vacuum generate those plays. But if they don't, if they can't do that consistently, it is a complete coin flip of a team, no matter how talented they are. If it just so happens that they can't generate explosive plays that game, it kind of doesn't matter who they're playing. They are viable to lose to anyone if they don't have, except 100%. For the Raiders. Except for the Raiders.
And so one thing I saw, true. One thing I saw that was interesting, LaShawn McCoy apparently came out and was talking about how the reason why the playbook, because one of the biggest stories of the Eagles offense this season was how predictable they are.
They have
and just how they're
plays.
Not really, they don't really do anything. And a lot of people, that's where Chris Patullo's name has been basically dragged in the dirt all season.
Yeah, 4th and 11 with the season on the line. Why don't we run 4 verts?
Well, yeah, that's the play I want to talk about. But LaShawn McCoy was talking about how because of Jalen Hurts, basically that's the limiting factor in their playbook. I don't know if that's true. That doesn't feel right simply because there have been times in Jalen Hurts' career where he, it wasn't the most exotic offense, but it was more exotic than what he ran this year. But we need to talk about that because not only was it fourth verts on 4th and 11, but they ran the same play the play before. And not only did they run the same play the play before, but after the third down stop, they called timeouts. And in the timeouts, it took them 18, 17, like a long time to get to the line of scrimmage so that they barely could get the playoff. The problem is that if any experienced good offense will use the time before the snap in big downs like that off of a timeout to their advantage. They'll send a guy in motion to try to figure out the disguise, regardless of the fact the 49ers didn't really disguise it. They brought the safety up, or the corner up, or the nickel, up. They brought the safety back. It was clear that they were in a cover 4 shell.
I think if you said
perfect
the word
defense against 4 verts. It was literally like exactly what you want. You have a bunch of guys in the middle of the field. The corners take the outside receivers, and Jalen Hurts threw it. And it was one of those things where it's like, not only that, but Jalen Hurts threw it to where most of the people were. On the outside, you did at least have one-on-one opportunities with A.J. Brown, who didn't have the best game.
You could throw a jump ball to, 50-50 ball, go make a play. Yeah, I mean, I think if you said the word
executed fourth down play for the season on the line.
I think if you said the word motion to Kevin Patullo, he would legitimately get vertigo. That's one thing.
I don't know.
Yeah,
man.
I mean, it is. I don't know if it's what I'll say about Jalen Hurts is this, and it's a weird thing for me to compliment Jalen Hurts after this, but it kind of plays off of the Nick Sirianni discussion, which is. You can never question the guy's intangibles because his leadership has been the only thing keeping them as a viable team and getting them to a Super Bowl and then winning a Super Bowl the next time around. But
listen, I think the one thing I'll say about Jalen Hurts is I think it's become pretty clear to me that he is a really good quarterback in a good system. See, there are certain quarterbacks that kind of transcend the system, that it doesn't really matter what happens. They're able to make something out of nothing. That's just not who Jalen Hurts is. And so when you have a bad system, it just doesn't work out.
Yeah, we kind of use the term a 2-dimensional quarterback. Jalen Hurts is like a 1.5-dimensional quarterback. He's like 0.75 in the passing game and 0.75 in the running game. Like, he is mobile, but not in like the same way on either side of things as like a Josh Allen type or a Lamar or a Jaden Daniels type. And he's also not like some elite pocket passer, but he's better than a lot of guys. It's just a weird combination where it's like, what are you, Jalen Hurts?
Yeah. The last thing I'll say is, like, obviously, because, I saw people talk about, they didn't have Lane Johnson and their, Steen, their new right guard hasn't played as well. And it's like, listen, man, like, this is still a very competent and very good offensive line. If it takes an historical offensive line for you to win a Super Bowl, then you're probably not going to win more than one in a long time.
Yes. That's exactly. That recaps it perfectly. We can move on to kind of getting into these last 3 games, this 3-game stretch of some absolute magic. Heartbreaking loss for the Jaguars. The Bills win 27-24, I believe the final score. Jaguars get the ball back with a little over a minute left. Chance to have a game-tying or a game-winning drive. First play. I guess technically you would call it a tip ball interception. It wasn't the greatest throw or decision to throw it into a double coverage. I guess you would say it actually was a pretty great throw. It was probably the wrong decision from Trevor Lawrence because he put it into one of the only spots you could, given how well defended it was, but it didn't matter. Tipped up into the air, picked off, game ends. Despite that, though, Trevor Lawrence actually is one of 3 guys in NFL history to have, or this century, to have 2 lead-taking touchdowns in a fourth quarter. But he's the only guy that didn't win. Like,
that sucks.
It sucks for Trevor Lawrence. 2 interceptions, one of them the end of the game, is what it is. Obviously, big moment, but I thought Trevor Lawrence played a fine game. Josh Allen,
he had an incredible game.
He had an incredible game, but it's almost as a compliment to Josh Allen, and this is one of the better compliments you'll get out of me when it comes to Josh Allen. it didn't even feel like he went Superman mode.
Mm-mm.
Like that was kind of
didn't.
like that's just kind of what you expect out of Josh Allen, particularly in the playoffs. And man, is that horrifying.
Yeah, no. Here's the thing. He had a 74th percentile EPA per dropback as a passer, and then he added 7 total EPA on his 6 designed rushes. He really was the offense. Khalil Shakir had an incredible game, but the biggest thing that I saw from Josh Allen in this game, and where I thought that the Jaguars kind of had to take advantage, is we saw a really interesting mix where and I think this is why it felt like he didn't go Superman mode, where when you look at the underlying metrics, like Josh Allen was this offense. Like he was the person, because the Bills couldn't really get the run game going, right? Like,
yeah, if you told me going into this game, because to be clear,
per rush,
this was the game that I one of the two that I split on. I had the Jags in this game. If you had told me going into the game that James Cook was going to get 15 carries for 46 yards, I would have said, not like, it's going to be a blowout, but I would have said, oh yeah, the Jags are going to win a close one. Like, in terms of what they generally did defensively, it was exactly what you would want for them to be able to win this game.
Exactly. But yet, Josh Allen was able to carry the load without the mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm saying this was an incredible game from Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Because when you're watching it, you don't say, oh, look, Josh Allen did this. Although that 4th and 1 run for like 10 yards practically to the end zone, that was the craziest QB sneak / tush push ever. And people were talking about, look at Josh Allen go. You got to shout out the offensive line. There was like 2 yards of that where his feet were in the air.
Yes, he was crazy. Once they got inside of the 5, Josh Allen was providing no momentum there. There was no leg drive.
It was just like anyway. The point is though, is that Josh Allen was the offense. He carried the offense. They attacked the middle of the field, obviously because they don't really have that outside receiving threat. And it was, but he did that without the negative plays. And so, and that's why they won the game ultimately, is because, and this was a game that was like 27-24. It felt more low scoring than it actually was. Like if I wasn't keeping track of points somehow, I would have looked at it and been like, this must be a low scoring game.
Well, part of that is because 28 of the points, 4 of the touchdowns did come in the fourth quarter.
Right.
Up until that fourth quarter, it was a slugfest. Right. And you saw that play out where in the fourth quarter, on both sides, the defenses were starting to get gassed and the offensive schemes were, starting to catch up with both of these defenses.
Yeah, absolutely. And so really what it boils down to, and why I was encouraged for the Bills in this game, is just like Josh Allen did what he normally does, but even though it didn't look as spectacular, it came without negative plays, which is huge for Josh Allen.
Yeah.
And then, the defense just did enough. They were able to stop the run on the inside. They had trouble stopping the run on the outside. A lot of people were criticizing Liam Cohen because he didn't run the ball enough. It's one of those things where it's like, you can't run it every time. He ran the ball plenty. Like
I would say that would be an unfair criticism, especially contextually based on the way the game was going. And in the fourth quarter, up until that last drive, pick the first play of the game, Trevor Lawrence was cooking. He got into a rhythm.
Yeah.
So, overall takeaways for the Jaguars season, this was a year that was slightly ahead of schedule. If Trevor Lawrence can steady himself even further and maintain this momentum generally, big picture heading into next season, this team will remain the best team in the AFC South. I truly believe that.
Yeah. Everything that, that one reporter said in the post-game interview to Liam Cohen.
That was also really adorable.
I second that. That was pretty amazing. No, I second that. I think it's perfect. And then as far as the Bills, again, it's just, they're going to be reliant on Josh Allen to generate offense, and we'll see how far he can take them. The one thing I do want to say though, is that, more game specific in this game, really what it boiled down to, and because like both offenses were efficient. The Jaguars missed on 4th and 2, and then they had those 2 interceptions. outside of that, their offense was efficient. They had an 88th percentile success rate. They were incredible to between the 20s, and they struggled outside of that. And I think that with the Jaguars, what I said preseason was, this is a season for Liam Cohen to establish himself, and I think he more than established himself as a good head coach, and I think that the future is incredibly bright for this team.
100%. 100%. I couldn't say it any better. We can move on to probably the best game of this week. Packers, Bears. Bears come back again. There's so many things that I could say about this game. I think the first thing that I have to say is, and I don't mean this in the way that people would typically mean this, Caleb Williams, just right now, this season and in this moment, is he the best bad quarterback ever? Like, he's not accurate. Most of the fundamentals of things that are very like teachable and coachable, he's objectively not that good at. And yet it's not one of those things where, but he shows some flashes. It's, he shows utter greatness and wins.
Yeah. I think at this point, it's hard for me to even say, like you're right. Like, Caleb Williams would be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL if every once in a while he didn't just throw the ball to nowhere. Like, if he didn't just miss wide open receivers every once in a while for no reason at all. It's one of those things where it's like,
I mean, he had 360 passing yards and a literal 50% completion percentage.
Yeah, no, he just does that, and it's kind of inexplicable. I'm sure it drives Ben Johnson crazy. How it's just like,
insane.
He's doing these, and then you have the 4th and 8, down by 11. Caleb Williams scramble drill touchdown to Rome Odunze, where he literally was like in the air, like not like totally straight, like his shoulders were totally, like aligned, facing Rome Odunze, and his feet were in the air, and he said, just freaking dart right to him. It's one of those things where it's like Caleb Williams, and we've talked about this all year with Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams simply just is still in the process of forgetting everything that he learned from the previous season. All of the bad habits, everything that happened in that first season. He is still trying to figure out how to be a regular schmegular quarterback that can run an offense. And every once in a while, what you'll see is he panics and throw the ball to nowhere.
And I was going to say, that's the funny thing is you're saying that. And I don't mean this as a diss against Caleb. Like, he's not even doing that great of a job of unlearning the previous year. He's still, like, relative to previous season, yes.
The biggest thing, here's the problem. The one thing I'll push back on against is his pressure to sack rate has gone from basically the worst in the NFL to like top 5.
If you had to put one number to describe the season and the turnaround for Caleb, that would objectively be it. Yes.
Yeah.
And he still hasn't learned how to turn those things into positive plays yet, but they're not negatives.
Consistently. Consistently. He does it every once in a while, but it's not consistent. And really, that's the key, right? Like, and that's basically that is the whole point that I've been trying to make for Caleb Williams this season. Not can we see it consistently, but can we see it every once in a while? Every once in a while, can we see that 4th and 11, that 4th and 8 down by 11 moments? And he's doing it a lot more than I expected, because my whole thing was like, if he can do it just a little bit, if he can play system good quarterback on top of like crazy Caleb Williams quarterback play, but be successful just a little bit more, this is a team that can win a lot more games with Ben Johnson. If he does it a lot more, which I think is the case, this is a team that can, make it to the divisional round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
I think, and I watched the 4th quarter of this game today, like 3 or 4 times. I think this is the best quarter I've ever seen of Caleb Williams.
100%.
Because he did not make he made like 1 or 2 of those throws where it's like, oh, that guy was open and you just missed him. But what's funny, and this is why I'm saying, like, it's him panicking and like having like PTSD from the year before, because whenever he misses the throws, it's always like a clean pocket.
It is.
Like it's never like this is a high percent or like a low percentage throw.
And
Like,
this is,
I don't know. It's just weird.
something to say on that. And this goes more into the intangible level, but I think it's part of it because how successful they've been, with their comebacks this season. The intangible aspect is you notice it specifically this fourth quarter, even when those plays happened, which they did a handful of times, more than you would want to see, you could tell it didn't mentally affect him. And you could tell his teammates weren't like bummed out at him, which is huge.
Yes.
Like that's an objective, like even though it's intangible, you could objectively watch with your own two eyes and see they didn't care. Right. Right back up.
That's been my whole
play.
point. That is all I was asking for Caleb Williams in this offense is just like, from Caleb Williams is like, can you just be somewhat consistent? And can you forget the bad habits? Can you forget all of the things that you messed up last season under absolute terrible coaching? Like terrible coaching, terrible leadership, multiple different offensive coordinators, a lack of a game plan.
If Matt Eberflus ever steps into the city of Chicago again, he should be shot.
Like I feel like Caleb Williams would start shaking. Like he wouldn't even have to see him. He just knows. He's like, oh my gosh.
And speaking again to the intangible aspect, it's not simply Caleb having faith in himself. It's not simply his teammates having faith or his coaching staff having faith. I think objectively, by winning that game, Chicago is behind him now.
Yeah. And I think that's huge. I really do.
They're going to host another playoff game, and if they're down again, beyond just the general, NFL fans you're stressed, if they're down a touchdown late in the game in the fourth quarter, it's not a situation where Chicago's going to be booing after a bad missed throw by Caleb. They're going to be fully anticipating that he will be right back up and playing well, and I think that does so much mentally for Caleb Williams.
What Caleb Williams has done this season, and specifically in this fourth quarter, is he has showed that he has the ability to both play system quarterback, to find the open guy, to read the defense, to anticipate where everyone's going to be, and also in the same drive, make the crazy, panic type throws that basically him and one other quarterback in the NFL can actually consistently make. If we can see that style of it really is just like that. Well,
here's
if he can carry himself,
here's actually a great comp,
and he can do it. The Chicago Bears have an incredible ceiling.
I mean, the comp of his play style is like Mahomes, but if you imagine the Mahomes scenario where instead of him having a positive year of resting and preparing and learning, Caleb Williams had, if Patrick Mahomes had a +1 after being drafted, Caleb Williams had a -1. He is starting from behind the 8 ball here, but you can see the play style the same. It's just that Mahomes right out of the gate had the fundamentals down, had the accuracy, knew the system. Caleb Williams is playing behind.
He had a whole entire year behind a good quarterback to see what it's supposed to look like. Mm-hmm. Caleb Williams had a whole entire year of a moron telling him the exact opposite of what he should be doing.
Yes.
And so when he completely forgets that and Ben Johnson fully has a grasp over this quarterback, we're going to see great things from him, and I have no doubt in that. I think he has an incredible future, and he will be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. By next year or the year after.
Yeah, I mean, potentially depending on how deep of a run they make, if that's in the cards for them, there's going to be, is Caleb Williams the best quarterback in the NFC discussion heading into the offseason?
Yeah.
We can move on to the last game to discuss, the first game that occurred.
Do we want to talk about the Packers?
Oh, that's a fair
Can I just
point.
say one thing about the Packers? I
was trying to give them a break.
We'll talk about LaFleur in the offseason. He did a really bad job this game. this was a bad game for him. Specifically in the second half, his play calling was rough. And then the last thing I'll say, because I think it's funny, part of me wonders if Ben Johnson hates Matt LaFleur so much that he like purposely creates these type of games just to rage bait him.
Speaking of rage baiting,
not only are we going to beat
I don't know
you,
why that jogged this, but it's not it's kind of correlated. Obviously, this was the third time that the Packers and the Bears faced off this season. The Packers the Bears won 2 of those 3 games.
Yes.
Do you know how many possessions that the Bears played across these 3 games possessing the lead?
Is it 0? It's 0, right?
The Bears won 2 of 3 games, and not at a single point did they possess the ball with a lead.
Listen, man.
106 possessions across these 3 games. 106 of them, the Packers were winning.
Listen, man, I really think Ben Johnson is doing this on purpose. He's like, not only are we going to beat you, but for 90% of the game, I'm going to make you think that you're going to win, and then I'm going to beat you. One of the times it didn't work out, and the other 2 it did.
and if it wasn't for just a bad Caleb Williams throw, it probably would have worked out all 3 times.
True.
But yeah, so
anyway, we can move on.
The Packers, tough. There's a lot to discuss about them in the offseason. We can save that for later. The Rams and the Panthers damn near did it again, Adam. They really did.
Sure did.
And what did I say going into this game? The one way that the Panthers win is in a shootout, and they had their chance. And it was close. Entertaining, high-scoring game, by far the most high-scoring game of the wild card week. This was a case of, and I'm not using this, I promise I'm not using this as an MVP debate discussion because it's irrelevant, it's the playoffs. But in the same way where it's like with the Patriots game, Drake May played poorly and they won, but I still have some questions, and that's really more based off the offensive line. This was a situation where Matthew Stafford played, for his standards, an objectively poor game, and they won, and now I'm like, oh, this team, like, there's a world with me, and I don't care how good Seattle is, and I'm right there with you. Maybe not as high on you as Seattle, but just right there. Like, they could roll into the Super Bowl, and it doesn't matter. Like, this game could flip something for them, and they just go on a tear. I don't know. I just get that sense about the Rams. But shout out to the Panthers. Fantastic season. Losing record in the playoffs, good for them. And Bryce Young played a heck of a game, absolutely deserves to come back one more year and prove that he, next year will be the season that determines whether or not he gets a second contract with the Panthers. And right now, it's looking like he maybe kind of could.
That is how it feels like. One thing that was funny about this game is that, and I think the Panthers, like, Dave Canales objectively did a good job with the scheming of this in terms of how aggressive they were pushing the ball down the field. I think a lot of people expected this to be a heavy run game, but the Panthers understood that, this is a better team than them, and that for them to win, they have to have the high leverage, high variance plays go their way. And it kind of did. Bryce Young was aggressive. His average depth of target was 9.2 yards, which is, I believe, the most in the season. Blows out his averages. He was explosive with Jalen Coker and Tedero McMillan. Mike Jackson and JC Horn were incredible outside. And they attacked the middle of as proof of that, the Rams attacked the middle of the field consistently because JC Horn and Mike Jackson was just locking down. Mike Jackson had, I think, 2 deflections. He had that interception, incredible. That really was one of the big plays that kept the Panthers in this game. But that's all I have to say for the Panthers. But for the Rams, it was the same old story. This is how they play teams that they're way better than. They somehow keep it close. right? Like they never fully pull away.
And special
And
teams errors.
oftentimes they lose those, and special teams errors and interceptions. Oftentimes this season they've lost those games. Fortunately, they won this game. One thing I wanted to talk about situationally, so it was 3rd and 6 in the second quarter. And the Rams were on their own 20, and the Rams, Matthew Stafford throws a deep ball, completely misses the receiver. Bad throw. They punt. Trevor Etienne fumbles the punt, and the Rams get the ball. They drive a little bit, and eventually on 4th down and 2, maybe, they go for it. And I remember in this moment, both of us, we texted each other and was like, this is a terrible decision.
I hated that
It was a
call.
terrible decision. And before they even missed it, like before they even, the play happened, we were both like,
because they called the timeout
points.
and it went to commercial, and it was like, if they go for this out of this timeout, I hate that decision. And then they did.
Yeah. Because, and I think my point of view is basically, at that point, I believe the game was 17-3. Or no, it was 17-7, sorry.
Yes, they were
or
up
was it
10.
14?
They were up 10.
They were up
17-7, and they could have gone up by 13.
Right.
And the Panthers
By
offense
13.
had done pretty much nothing that first half.
Exactly. Except for the one touchdown. And, it's like you take the points, you take the lead. The reason you say you take the points is because, based on time management, everything like that, you don't want to end this game or this half with only a 3-point lead. And that's exactly what happened. They miss it. The Panthers drive down the field. They score a touchdown before half. And then the rest of the 3rd quarter and the 4th quarter, until eventually, the Panthers did take a lead in the 4th quarter. It was back and forth. You had the Plog's punt, you had the interception by Mike Jackson, and all of a sudden the Panthers have the lead. And it's like, even though for 90% of this game, the Rams clearly were the better team. Like, you're watching this and you're like, they're the better team. There's no doubt in my mind. The Panthers still found a way to almost take it from them if it wasn't for what I will say is an incredible catch or pass by Matthew Stafford and catch by Kobe Parkinson to win the game. And
this may sound bold up front, and then we can start looking ahead to the divisional round. I'm going to say legacy saving, not in terms of like Matthew Stafford's legacy would have been severely tarnished by this, but in terms of saving him being elevated into another tier of discussion. That was a legacy saving drive at the end there from Matthew Stafford, secures the win, and we'll see where it goes from here. In fact, we can bust right into the discussion of the divisional round now if we want to.
Yeah, before we do, why don't you explain our little game and our prediction system?
Yes, so Adam and I play a little game. We've played it all season. Basically, you predict every single game. You get a point if you get it right, nothing if you get it wrong. There's also upset alert where some craziness can happen. 3 points plus a spread. We're picking underdogs. But now that it's in the playoffs, there's no upset alert. It's purely pick every single game, but they're weighted more. You get 3 points for every one right. As we said, Adam and I each went 5 and 6. We split on Bills-Jags. Adam won that one with the Bills. We split on 49ers-Eagles. I won that with the 49ers. So we both walk away with 15 points, Adam. Because heading into this, you had a 1-point lead after the regular season, which, considering all of the variance of this game, the fact that it was that close of a margin.
That close is crazy.
Crazy. So you still maintain a 1-point lead heading into the divisional round. The first game, because now that the schedule has been solidified, Saturday afternoon, Broncos hosting the Bills. Who do you got, Adam?
I have the Bills.
I have the Bills as well.
I knew that this was going to be the matchup. Listen, I think that the Broncos this year, their defense has been incredible. Like I talked about really early in this episode, I think momentum-wise, their defense has kind of gone down a little bit. Still incredible, but just a little bit. I think that really I think Josh Allen is going to be able to do enough in a close game to win this.
It's a combination of Josh Allen and, for whatever it matters, on the old rest versus rust discussion, I think that there's a lot more rust for Bo Nix than there is rest. I don't think Bo Nix is a guy that you want sitting on his butt for 2 straight weeks playing no football and then coming right out and playing against, with Josh Allen on the other side of the field. I just like that matchup, and it's simplistic quarterback analysis, but I think Josh Allen is that, much of a freak athlete that he's going to make something happen.
Yeah, I think that obviously the Broncos, this is a good on good matchup. Like, I think when you're thinking about what is their defense good at, it's getting to the quarterback and getting to the quarterback quickly. And who's a good quarterback that you would want in that scenario? It's Josh Allen. And so for me, it's just about, I think the Broncos offense is going to be the same as it has been all year. It's going to struggle. Bo Nix is probably going to miss some, deep passes. And at the end of it, we're going to say wow, there's a lot of meat left on the bone for Bo Nix in this offense. And they just weren't able to get it done in the clutch. And Josh Allen was.
Maybe this is disrespectful. And at the same time, I obviously don't want it to happen, knock on wood. I really think that the Broncos' only way to win this game is if they just hit Josh Allen and hit him hard and they knock him out of the game for a drive or two.
Maybe I could see them winning a 10-7 game.
I guess, yes. I have a very hard time believing that Josh Allen will score, single digit points, but that is also another formula, is if it's an utter slugfest.
Yep.
49ers at the Seattle Seahawks. This is an interesting one, but at the same time, as much as I have loved and appreciated the 49ers run, the Seahawks just have them outmatched here. And the Sam Darnold conversation, even though I am coming around on Brock Purdy slightly, the gulf between them outside of a utter Sam Darnold 4 interception collapse is not wide enough for me to really heavily consider San Francisco here.
I think the question whenever you're thinking about a Sam Darnold game is just, what does that team that he's going against, what ability do they have in order to rush the passer? And the 49ers don't really have a pass rush. Even in this win against the Eagles, they didn't really have that particular of a pass rush. And so it's I think the offense will do enough. I think the defense is going to be stifling like it was a few weeks ago when we saw this matchup. And I think the Seahawks have enough.
This is also the game where I think it may be the first time where specifically the complete decimation of San Francisco's linebackers comes into play. Because, oh Lord, if Charbonnet and Walker get into that second level, I'm not trusting a 5th and 6th string linebacker to bring him down.
What's really funny about the Seahawks this season is it's their whole entire offensive scheme with Clint Kubiak is based on the establishment of the run, and yet they're not a particularly good running offense. They just do it so much that teams have to respect it. If there is a world where in the next 2 games, the Seahawks figure out how to run the ball efficiently, they're going to be unstoppable.
Yeah. Well, and it's also one of those things where even if it's not that efficient of a run game, when you're playing with guys that are they're obviously NFL players and they played fantastic, but clearly a couple rungs below, just based on the depth chart, top tier guys. This style of Kubiak run the ball down your throat, regardless of whether it's working, is going to wear those linebackers down. It just will.
Frankly, it did. We saw it.
Yes.
We saw it happen.
Yes.
What I wrote down is the 49ers' power of friendship will run out. I think that this is finally the moment.
Yes.
Where this will run out. But
and a fantastic season to them,
here.
But we're the same page. Seahawks there. This is the game that was not on because my AFC bracket was upended in the way that your NFC bracket was upended. I've been sleeping on this one. The Patriots hosting the Texans. And I'm just
This
going
one's
to come
tough.
out and say it. I'm picking the Texans.
Me too.
Oh,
Me
wow.
too. No, I decided that today because I've been sleeping on it too, because I knew that it would happen as soon as the Patriots would win. Listen, I think that when you look at the Chargers and Patriots game, what you saw is that the Patriots still have troubles protecting their quarterback against elite pass rushes, even pass rushes that aren't elite. Listen, and this is what's annoying to me because, I put that Drake May video out talking about like Drake May MVP discussion video, and people are like, what do you mean? The Patriots have a better pass rush or offensive line. And it's like, have you watched the games?
No.
Like it's better, but it's still a liability. Like, I don't care what anyone says. Like, watch them play. And you saw it this game.
Yeah, they may have jumped
Chargers.
10 spots, but that's jumping from like
But it's
30th
still,
to
like,
20th.
Exactly. And so it's like, listen, I think that the Texans are, it's the exact same analysis for the Chargers Patriots game. The difference is that the Texans, all of the advantages that the Chargers had, multiply that times 100 with the Texans. Because, right, the biggest thing with the Texans is just how well will that offensive line do. I think they can do just enough for the Texans to score the 14 points that might be necessary to win this game.
Yeah, the flip side of this on the analysis is if there was a comparison to the Texans' offensive line, it would be the Chargers' offensive line, and the Patriots' defense did utterly exploit that. The Chargers only scored 3 points. At the same time, I do think this Texans offensive line has objectively improved from the start of the season.
100%.
I also think that C.J. Stroud generally is more built to play under the style of if nothing just from the fact that he's experienced it the entire season, he's more mentally prepared for what to do than Herbert is.
This isn't true, but it feels like even if the Texans are the 31st worst offensive line in the NFL, the Chargers are the 50th, and there are high school and college teams in between them. Like, I don't think people understand that it's not even close. Like, it's not like, they might have one spot different, even though they don't. The Chargers are or the Texans are probably the 20th best offensive line in the NFL. The Chargers are so bad. Like, their offensive line is legitimately terrible. Terrible. So that's one. I think the Texans' offensive line is going to be able to do enough that the Texans are going to be able to get something going. The other advantage, too, here is, and, we'll have to see Nico Collins. It looks like he took a pretty brutal hit when he on that slant where he kind of like bent over and fell right on his head. Hopefully he'll be able to play in this game. I also think that the Texans just have more of an advantage against these Patriots cornerbacks on the outside. And so with Jaden Higgins and Knoll and obviously Nico Collins, and then Christian Kirk had an incredible game against the Steelers. It's just that I think that the Texans have enough in this offense to be able to move the ball. And I don't expect CJ Stroud to play that bad.
No, I don't either.
Also, one thing we have to talk about, too, the Steelers do have a better pass rush and defensive line compared to the Patriots.
Oh, 100%. And
so it's...
I guess what I'll say in this game is I do think ultimately it will be the turnover margin, and I think that the Texans will win the turnover margin.
Yeah, no, I think so. And I think that I just really, I'm sorry, like I'm obviously a big Drake May fan, although I think people, because I put out those videos, people are a little bit, like, people need to settle down. I actually think there's a lot of merit to saying Stafford is MVP, and I kind of go back and forth myself.
Yes.
That being said, the problem is that no one says the good arguments for Matthew Stafford.
Yes.
Like you do, but like other than everyone says things, and it's like, that's dumb. There are way better reasons to pick him. Sorry, that's a tangent. The point is that the Texans defense, like I talked about before, is legitimately stifling. They're the number one defense in the NFL, and I don't actually think it's particularly close. I don't see a world in which this Patriots offense is going to be effective moving the ball.
Yeah. If the Patriots score 21 points, they win this game. I don't think they score 21 points. I think this is like a 20-17 Texans win.
I don't even know if the
Maybe
Patriots will split that much.
I'm being generous.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. Wow. I'm shocked we aligned.
I'm shocked. We picked the. Yeah, me too.
I thought we would split there, but hey, I'm okay with that. Now we get into an interesting one because this is between my heart and my head, and also kind of my heart as well, with the Rams and Bears.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the Bears story this season. I'm also a big Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay guy, and I don't exactly know what to do here other than stick with both my gut and my head, which is that the Rams take this game. But, oh Lord, I mean, could we be witnessing the equivalent of what Jaden McDaniels and the Commanders did last season, a magical run to the NFC Championship game? It's certainly on the table. The Rams would literally have to be up by 4 possessions in the fourth quarter for it to be over. I mean, if it's even a 17-point game heading into the fourth quarter, you're like, well, the Rams have history on their side, or the Bears have history on their side. So,
yeah.
But I am taking the Rams.
Yeah. This is the game that the Rams lose throughout the season. I want to just take you throughout history.
I know.
The first loss against the Eagles. The Rams looked like the better team for the vast majority of this game. It was their offense stalling in the second half and then 2 blocked field goals that they ended up losing. Then they lost to the 49ers. They lost to the 49ers in overtime when the 49ers got the ball first, kicked the field goal, and on 4th and 1, Sean McVay ran the ball right up the middle. They were stuffed and they lost the game. Then they lost to the Panthers. It was high leverage 4th down conversions by Bryce Young and interceptions and turnovers that lost them that game, even though the entire time they looked like the better team. They then lost to Seattle. And in Seattle, it was a situation where they looked like the better team. They racked up literally like 500 yards of offense, and yet it was a punt return and a fluky 2-point conversion, and they ended up losing that game. And then they lost to Atlanta, in which, again, they kind of looked like the better team throughout the entire, not the entire game, but especially going into the second half. And it was just a close back and forth game, and they weren't able to get it done. The reason I'm saying this is because let's look at the Bears. This is the type of game that the Bears win. And again, we can look at their season and look at some of their wins. First off, one thing you'll notice when you're looking at the Bears season, they haven't particularly won any games where it wasn't really close.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, one of the bigger blowouts was the Eagles game in which they just ran like madmen. And the reason I'm saying this is because I know that the Rams are the better team.
I gotta pick the Bears. I don't love that they're going to Chicago. I hate the warm weather LA team going to the cold elements in Chicago.
This season, the Bears have this unquantifiable way of winning games where most of the game they look like the worst team. And the Rams have this unquantifiable way of losing games where they look like the better team.
It's not a super high. I'm sorry, I just have to be the local weatherman. One, it's going to be in between the low teens, high single digits in Chicago, and a decent chance of snow flurries on Sunday night.
That's awesome. It's going to be such a great game. Listen, I think the Rams are better, and I hate myself for taking this pick, but I got to pick the Bears.
I hate you for taking this pick. I'm mad at you. I think you might be right.
I just think that this season, this is the season where the wild card team, and they're not a wild card team, but where the team with all odds stop against them make a run. Right? Like, this is the season where Titans fall. And I don't mean the Tennessee Titans. I mean, like, teams that are historically really good in recent history. I was going to say Giants fall, but there's also a Giants. Both of them fell, but that's besides the point. Like, this is the season where this type of stuff happens. And even though I'm the analytical guy, I like the stats, and all of the numbers all of the number crunching in my head tells me that the Rams are the better team, and it's not particularly close. I don't think stats are predictive. I think that stats tell a story, but they don't tell you what's going to happen. If they did, we would all be rich.
We would all be
And
rich.
so-
I don't like that you get
I'm going with the
to,
Bears.
you're taking your riser and I'm picking against my riser heading in, you had the Bears as your biggest riser. I had the Patriots heading into the season. But, yeah, I don't hate that pick at all. In fact, I actually quite like it.
Really? You're not surprised?
No, well, I guess generally you have been a big... The problem is for me is that I'm sticking with my Rams because I've always been pro Rams this entire season because I do think they are that good. And at the end of the day, I am relatively solid in my pick. I think they win this game. It doesn't shock me that much coming from you because you kind of were jumping on the Rams wagon with me. I'd been winning you over, and then the Seahawks stole you away. And so it doesn't shock me that you're...
Well, I've thought that the Rams have been better.
Well, that's fair.
The only time the best team just to clarify, if the Rams win this game and the Seahawks win this game, I pick the Rams in the championship game. But it's just because that's a game I feel like the Rams win. You look at the schedule and teams that are better, they play better. But teams that are not as good, they don't play that good. And, the one thing you could say is well, it's a big moment. It's the playoffs. That only seems to be more true the bigger the moment it is.
Here's my one semi-analytical counterpoint. Because like we've said, the Bears, more likely than not, will be trailing heading into the fourth quarter, but it's about the comeback ability. Yes. Here's the thing. Sean McVay is better than Matt LaFleur. Sean McVay knows how to play with a lead. He's not going to fall into the same style of pitfalls that other offensive head coaches do when they're playing with a lead against Chicago. He's smart enough to know how to handle being up by 7 or 10 points in the fourth quarter. And that's not to say that he's immune from, someone coming back against him. But I do think that there is a point where it's if LA is up by 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, I will fully, if the Chicago Bears come back, fall at the mercy of the Chicago Magic and Ben Johnson's ability and Caleb Williams' clutchness. I will drink the Kool-Aid fully.
There you go. The other thing too is that I had a feeling that we wouldn't split on any picks. And I'm even though I have the lead, and that'd be better for me, because I think we would. Now that I think about it, this is really dumb.
Yeah,
I am putting the game on the line. I am not at all in the position to be making this pick when it comes. I didn't even think about that. I was just I don't want us to pick all of the same games.
Because here's the thing too: if I win this and we split on it, there's only 3 more games left in the season for you to win that we would split on.
Yeah, that's my point. It's chances are we're probably not going to split again.
But
well, maybe we could. I don't know.
It depends. I don't know. Both of the championship games that we have created, we have the same AFC championship. I guess that should be said. In the AFC championship, we are predicting a Bills-Texans.
Texans-Bills.
You would be having Seahawks-Bears. I'd be having Seahawks-Rams. Yeah, I don't know. We could easily split on some of those games, I feel like.
Yeah, that's true.
We'll see. But I like it, Adam. Stick with your gut. Believe in yourself, man.
Yeah,
say it with some conviction.
Not been good this year. Every once in a while, basically every time I go with my gut this season, it's when you start making a comeback. Because that's what I've had a lead basically the whole season, and then you slowly come back. And every time it's because when I have a lead, I'm ooh, let me just go with my gut instead of my head.
See, so for me, it's when I start thinking. And when I start thinking, that's when the problems emerge for me.
True.
When I start using my brain, I have some issues.
Ugh. Oh my gosh.
Well,
anyway,
folks, that's
going to be a great weekend.
It's going to be a fantastic weekend. I can't wait to watch pretty much all these football games. I doubt that we're going to get, I'm hoping I think best case scenario, we get 3 super close matchups, hopefully at least 2 of them. That'd be fantastic. It was actually a pretty literally a historic wild card weekend in terms of it was the most fourth quarter lead changes in any wild card weekend ever. And obviously part of that has been because of the 7th seed recently, but even since the 7th seed has been created, adding more games, just a fantastic week of football.
Pretty incredible.
Adam, whose players' highlights are we watching?
Playoff legend Nick Foles. Shout out to the Eagles.
Shout out to the Eagles. Deep down, I still don't like you. But I like you slightly, slightly more deep down than I do outwardly, which is not a lot, to be clear, okay? But shout out Nick Foles because he did steal a Super Bowl from Tom Brady.
Bro, speaking of which, they did kind of, the Patriots did kind of, it wasn't exactly the Philly special, I don't think, but it was pretty similar. They missed it. But in that game against the Chargers, they tried. They tried. Anyway. All right, guys. Well, go watch Nick Foles highlights if you like this. Make sure to like and subscribe. Comment if you think we're wrong. Comment if you think you're right. If we're right, nope. Comment if you think we're wrong. Comment if you think we're right.
If you stick around, you'll get a lot more of that.
Yeah, exactly. Peace.
Peace.